Y bueno, vamos ya a dar inicio a nuestra quinta sesión, que habla sobre el acceso y el uso de nuevas fuentes de datos para generar estadística oficial. Y tenemos, igualmente que los anteriores, un panel, un grupo de expertos en varias áreas. Primero tendremos a Ronald Jansen, que es funcionario de UNSD, la División de Estadística de Naciones Unidas. Él va a hablar por videoconferencia. Posteriormente tendremos la intervención de Carlos González Munguía, quien trabaja en el Centro de Innovación de BBVA. Y posteriormente tendremos a Dara Seidel, quien es académica de la Universidad Estatal de San Diego. Y después tendremos la intervención de María Cristina Capello de Facebook. Entonces todos están aquí y creo que lo que corresponde es dar ahora la palabra a Ronald, que está con nosotros. Hi Ronald, we're ready. Can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear. It's all in Spanish, which is fine. I could follow you quite well on that.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you that we will be having simultaneous translations, so it would be fine if you speak in English. And when at the time of questions and answers, I'm going to read the questions and read it to you, so we can make sure that you have that you get the answer, the question.
Sure.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon. I'm glad to be participating in this meeting. I'm unfortunate wasn't able to fly over to Mexico City due to other commitments this week. But I'm very happy to explain and tell you about the activities the United Nations is undertaking in the area of official statistics, about big data, and about the privacy, confidentiality related issues. It's an important topic, and I'm happy I can let you know what we are doing in this area. Can you understand me very well there?
Yes, I think everybody can hear you.
Thank you. So I cannot see my slides, but I assume we have the first slides, which indicates the title and my name.
Here they are.
And I would like to just introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Ronald Jansen. I work at the United Nations. I'm an assistant director. My background many years ago is in human information processing and statistics, which is I think fitting for the topic of the day. I've been working for the United Nations since 1990 in the statistics division. The statistics division of the UN is part of UN Secretariat, which is the main UN headquarters, if you like. The statistics division main purpose is serving the UN Statistical Commission, and I'll come back to the commission in a second, where we develop and maintain the international recommendations of official statistics, so that statistics can be compared and harmonized worldwide. Recently, my division restructured, and we more or less put our division in line a little bit with the Sustainable Development Goals. I also get back to that. We have three substantive branches in the division: economic, environment, and social demographic, and two horizontal divisions. One is on the SDG data and outreach, and the other one, which I'm heading, is the branch on data innovation and capacity. So mostly capacity development and strategies in that. We've been working on big data for the last maybe 4 years, but it was always something that we did on the side. And now recently, this is since April of this year, data innovation, including big data, is part of our structure in the division. So I'm very happy with that. If we go to the next slide, please. The next slide, please. Yeah. So this gives an overview of the three topics I want to quickly go through. One is the quickly role of official statistics from the point of view of UN. Then how we are looking at big data, and then we come to the topic of confidentiality in relation to the use of big data. If I go to the next slide. The next slide, please. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the Statistics Division serves the United Nations Statistical Commission. This commission consists of the chief statisticians of our member states and also chief statisticians of the international agencies. They meet once a year in March of each year to go over and develop standards, best practices, and also discuss capacity building around the world. Recently, there were two main developments, if you like. One is that the General Assembly, which is the highest political level at the UN, adopted a resolution on the fundamental principles of official statistics, which is our guiding book on how to deal with statistics at a national and international level, but especially also at national level. And the other one was the indicative framework for the monitoring of progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. That's a resolution also adopted, again, at high political level last year in July. So let me say a little bit more about that. If we go to the next slide. The UN is really now mostly occupied, especially the department in which the Statistics Division works, with these Sustainable Development Goals. There are 70 goals, 169 targets, and many indicators. And the community of official statistics, or the national statistical officers, have been given the marching order to provide indicators to monitor progress in achieving those goals. The goals are very wide. It's about people, planet, prosperity, and peace and partnerships. Those are the 5 Ps under which this 2030 agenda was put together. And it applies to all member states, whereas the previous set of Millennium Development Goals was mostly for developing countries. So that's the large umbrella under which we work. Let me go to the next slides. I mentioned the fundamental principles. If we look at principle number 1, it really indicates that official statistics should serve society is a fundamental basis for a democratic society. Also, in this first principle, it really indicates what I think makes official statistics stand out, which is that it's impartial. It provides impartial information to the public. If I go to the next slide, there are 2 principles which are closely related to today's topic. The first one is that the data could be drawn from all types of sources. So in these fundamental principles, there is also an indication to use new data sources like big data for official purposes. And immediately also this principle 6 indicated that there is strict confidentiality rules under which official statisticians work. We'll go to the next slide. We'll say a little bit about the big data. Please go to the next slide. Very quickly, there are like 3 types of big data. I don't think there was a lot of classification work done on big data sources. I think this classification, which was put together by the UN ECE region a few years ago, I think is useful. So the types are human-sourced information, like social networks, internet searches, mobile data content, text messages, is one. Then if we go to the next slide, so the human source is very sensitive. Process-mediated data can be quite sensitive, like medical records, also commercial transactions, credit card information. If I go to the next slide, it's the machine-generated data on sensors and also mobile sensors, mobile phone data, satellite data. That's the ones which we have been using in the work under the UN a lot. But there are quite a few other data sources which we haven't touched very much yet. We'll go to the next slide. So why is big data important? One is to keep official statistics relevant, because there are many other sources of information available. I think the reason big data can be so useful is that the expectation is that we can make it faster and more frequent available, and that there could be more granularity in the data. I think those are some of the benefits for using it. So we're modernizing the statistical systems with it, and we can also, we hope to be able in this way using big data to meet the demand of the 2030 agenda. And data can also, of course, be used in emergency situations, also for the within the UN system that can be useful. If I go to the next slide. So we have a, which is called a global working group on big data for official statistics. If we go to the next slide. This group was established 2014, and it's given a mandate to give direction on how to use big data, best practices, some recommendations being put together by this group. It's a fairly big group, 28 countries and 16 international organizations. We meet annually, but there's a lot of meetings going on via video conferences in between. There are a number of task teams that do their work. If I go to the next slide. There is also a bureau, and I can recommend if you go to the website to have a look what the latest developments are in this group. And then the bureau is meeting every 2 weeks and is keeping a pace on the work that's going on. One of our main topics of work currently, if I go to the next slide, is the so-called Global Working Group. Global platform, which is an environment where we would like to collaborate among the national statistical agencies and international agencies in using new data sources, using it in trusted data, trusted methods, and also have some capacity building learning materials on that platform. If I move to the next slide, it gives an overview of the structure of the platform, where a lot of services are being made available. This platform is being built by, or has been built actually by the Office of National Statistics of the UK. They've made a lot of these services available. Currently, we are experimenting with satellite data on the platform, with some price scanner data on the platform, and we also hope to start working on mobile phone data. Now, these data don't necessarily have to exist in the cloud in the UK. It can be in a federated cloud system, but the algorithms and data services would be shared through this platform. If I go to the next slide. Here's a little bit of an example of where some of these services are being used. There's an indication here of the cloud server environment under Amazon. Actually, the platform also provides Google, Microsoft, and Alibaba services as in cloud servers. So this is something that is happening, and where we want to have as many statistical officers involved as they feel comfortable working with us. The next slide. So the benefits here. So common data policy could be a benefit among the various agencies around the world. We can, as a group, negotiate with data providers. We can look at common technology, and of course we can develop algorithms which can be shared in various ways. If I go to the next slide, there is of course, we want to work with private sector to move fast. Could be Microsoft, Amazon, Google. I mentioned that. Esri, we've been working with them as well. If I move to the next slide, it gives a little bit of few of the projects which we are doing. We're doing some work on this SDG 661 fresh water extent. That's with UNEP, the UN Environment Organization. With Google, with Microsoft, we are at the beginning of working on agricultural statistics, and with Nielsen, we are trying to work on their price data to calculate consumer price indices. So those are things that are happening. Please go to the next slide. So the Global Working Group tries to see that this is a collaborative space. It's a kind of research and development space for official statistics, working with partners. And the benefits should be done in a sustainable way. So we have to, in a few years from now, come to a model that will sustain over time. Now I come to the next point. Please go to the next slide, which is the privacy issues around big data. So how can we collaborate, basically, on sensitive data among the various groups? One of the questions we posed within this global working group is, can we classify sensitivity of data sources? I'll go to the next slide. So that shows a number of dimensions in which you could classify data sets on their sensitivity. I don't know if you can read this slide very well. So there are a number of dimensions, and each of those dimensions go from highly sensitive in the red to less sensitive in the green. So you might be able to classify data sets. So data sets which are not sensitive on any of those issues can be easily worked on. Those data sets which are, sorry, we're going too fast with the slides now. Please go one back. If I go one slide back, please, is it possible? So the data sets, we can define that in sensitivity. The second question is, how can we protect it? So then I go to the next slide. So one way of protecting is under the national law. So there are very strict laws that the national statistical officers are protecting the data, the confidentiality of data. That's good for the national data. It's not so good for collaboration. So there we have to find new solutions. And among those new solutions, if I go to the next slide, so the Global Working Group has a privacy preserving techniques group. It's composed of experts from statistical offices, but also private sector and academia. And they work a lot on encryption and encryption methods. And they want to do this with open standards, algorithms, policies, and principles. If I go to the next slide. So there is this is as an example about the work in academia, which is being worked on. It's like algorithms for differential privacy. And if I just look at the very last paragraph here, so the differential privacy is that you learn nothing about an individual, but you still get useful information about the population. That's the idea behind it. So that's one way of working. That is one side of the techniques. I'll go to the next slide. So how can we collaborate on sensitive information? We go to the next slide. So there is work going on. So there are just a few slides left. There's work going on, for instance, combining two sensitive data, tax records, education records. It doesn't have to be necessarily big data. I mean, these are very sensitive data. But there are studies on the way to do this in a protected way. We have Dan Bogdanov from ShareMind, who has developed this, is part of this group under the Global Working Group. He's sharing his information on that. If I go to the next slide, and then we click through a little bit if we can. So this is combining on a mobile network data. If we click further, please. Can we go further on further slides? Then it shows here how mobile network data could be combined. I don't know if it works. Yes. Through a machine which is coded there. Please click further, so that we can run algorithms on it, which will give us results. If we click through these slides, please. But without that, people can actually look at the data. So we get results if you click one more time. So it indicates that people do not really have access to it, but it will give results. So those are the kinds of things that we are working on. This particular example is from Estonia data on mobile phone records, where the National Data Protection Office was satisfied with the way this was protected, so that the statistical office could actually work with the mobile data. So with the blessing from the Data Protection Council. So this brings me to the last slide. So a bit of a wrap up on all the various things is that collaboration. If we go to the next slide, collaboration under the global working group, on the global platform, we think it's possible. It's also possible on sensitive data. We can't simplify things. I mean, it's difficult. We have to be careful on data security, careful on keeping confidentiality protected. But it's something that we believe is possible, and collaboration on new technologies, new data, and algorithms is possible, and can be useful for the community of official statistics. If we click one more time, please, for the last slide. So this was my last slide. So it's collaboration, sensitive information is difficult but not impossible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronald. I should say that I skipped one part. Ronald, he's a PhD mathematician in modeling, specialist in modeling of human information processing from the University of Groningen. I believe that's the Netherlands. But, well,
that's right.
Thank you. Well, now is my